So in this video we are going to see how we can use create and create by association in ABAP entity manipulation language or ABAP EML for short. So create by association is mainly used when there is a need to create an instance based on the another instance. For example, let's take an example of a student record and which is having an association with the result. So until and unless student is exist, result can be exist, but without the student a result cannot exist. So when these kind of situations are there and you want to create the record for both, for example, let's take other thing like order header and order item. So without the item there cannot be any order created. This type of creation is used when there is an association, especially in case of composition. So this was an example of composition where student result cannot exist until and unless student exists in the record. In this video we will be seeing create and create by association using one of our existing application. Now before going into technical, let's see what is the syntax of using this create by association. As usual, in the blue color these are all the keywords, and in the yellow color these are all the values which will be changed based on the business object. Again we will be using modify entities, and then there will be a root entity name, then entity. You can have the entity alias name or the root entity name, either will work here. Then create form, here you will have header internal table name which contains the data. So this will have the internal table which will have the data for your header entity. Now create by and then the association name. Your association name which you have mentioned or maintained while creating the CDS view. So the same association name will be here, but you need to put a backslash here, and then when you put control and space you will get underscore and the association name automatically if you have defined one. Now from and then item internal table name which contains the data. So this has the header internal table for the data, and this internal table will have the data for items or the association entity. Okay, now the rest of the three things are the response parameters which are mapped, failed and reported. And all of these, what are these and how they can be used, we have already seen in our previous video. Now there are some derived data types which will be used while we will be creating this create and create by association code. So very first is %CID, and which stands for content ID. So this content ID is a temporary primary key for an instance, and it is valid till the actual primary key is generated by the runtime. Whenever you create any data using EML, this %CID is suggested to be used. It's a best practice to provide the CID always when you are using EML to create your data, because the primary key for that record will not be available, and that place we can provide %CID and a name to that specific instance. Now %CID underscore reference, this is mainly used when you use create by association or child and header entities relationship kind of operation, which we will be doing now. In this %CID ref, this specifies the reference to the control ID. So this will always have the value which you have maintained in percentage CID. So if need to refer the header and child record, then percentage CID underscore ref is populated with header CID value. So whatever CID value you will maintain for header record, that should be same maintained for percent CID reference, so that these two records can be connected together. Okay, so these are the two main which will be used, and it will be more clear when we write some code. This was the high level about create and create by association, where it is used, and at high level how it should be used. Now let's see how technically we can achieve this requirement. This is our application which we have created in one of our previous videos, and let's click on go, and we are seeing here some record which is specific student record here, and when we click on this record, it opens an object page with similar details, but along with this it also has a record which is attachment. So this attachment has attachment ID, the auto generated ID for the file, some comment, and the attachment, the actual attachment which has. And this has been achieved by using the composition, and let's see how this has been done in the CDS view. Now this is how our service looks like, and this is the entity set and the association which we have maintained here. We have the attachment and student association, and then student and attachment association. Okay, now let's see how we have maintained the composition between these two. So if you see very first which is a root entity view, and which is a projection for our root entity. Here we have a projection on item, the header one, and if you see here, the association attachments says redirected to composition child attachment table. Okay, so we have maintained this composition here, and we also have maintained the same for the student association. So here we have written redirect to parent. So this is the projection for child, or we can say the attachment, and this is the projection for header, or we can say the student. Okay, so from header we are going to child, and then from child we are going to parent here. So when these kind of situations are there, and you want to create a record for both header and child, then you go with create and create by association logic. Now this is done, and for creating this demo, I have already created a class GCL rep 5002 EML demo, and I have added an interface here just to run this class and see how it works, how it saves the data. Now let's start writing some code. Very first thing which we need to do here is creating an internal table to store the header data. So for that, let's write it quickly, lt underscore student, and this will be type table for create, because we will be creating a new record, and this table would be of type our root entity. So our root entity name is this one. Copy this and place it here. Now this is done. The second thing which we need to do here is we also need to collect the data for item, or the attachment table. So for that, let's create another table which would be lt underscore attachments and type table for create. This will also create some data, and this table will be coming from the association. So how you will get the association table is backslash and then control space. See, our association name is available here. So this will be your association type, and then create an work area as well. So like line of our attachment. Okay, so this is done. We have created an internal table for our header and for our child as well. This one is done. Now the third thing which is needed here is a target, and this target will be used to connect the attachment data with the header data basically. So our attachment data will go to this target table. Now let's create this. So lt target, and then this will be like this attachment and percent target. Okay, so our data types are now ready, local types, and now let's start creating the data for our header, which is student. Now the same data we have created in our previous video. So let me go to the class and get that data. We copy here and paste. Now the name of the table is lt student. Now we have got our first name, last name, age, course duration, status, and then the control parameters as well. All of these things we have seen in detail in the previous video. If you are not aware of the syntax, I would recommend you to please visit the previous video first. Now this thing is done. Now the second thing which we need to do is we need to create data for our attachment. Okay, now our attachment table would be our target. So get lt target is equal to, and then we are using a new syntax. This will be a table, so 2 round brackets. And now, okay, one thing we have forgot here is, since we are using EML to create the data, the %CID is required. It is not required, it will not give you any error, but it is suggested to always add this, because this will act as your primary key until and unless a new primary key has been generated for your created record. So it's a best practice to add a %CID here. I'm adding student header. Okay, so now here as well, since we are creating again, so I will add %CID. %CID is equal to, now student attachments. Okay, and what are all fields we have here? So we have here attachment ID, attachment, comment, and file name. Let's add the attachment ID. and provide a value of 10 maybe, then comments, and let's add some comment. File attachment, and then the file name. Let's give some file name here, test file name. Now the next thing which we need to do here is we need to add the control parameters. Okay, so to add the control parameter here, let's go to here and then add percent control parameter here, which would be again value hash, and now what are all the values? So attachment ID, yes, I want to save this value, so mk and on. Okay, now the second value would be attachment, then comments, and the file name. So I want to save all of these three columns here, whatever value we will pass. So this is all done. Now the next thing which we need to do here is we need to prepare a final table which will have this attachment data. So we have here LT attachment. So LT attachment will have again the value, and this will be a table. Okay, now what value we want to send here for save? So here we need to provide a reference, this attachment, for which header data this attachment is. So that would be identified by this CID. So copy this name and this name will be given to percent CID reference is equal to student header. So now this attachment data and this student header data are now connected. Means this will be the association details for this student, and this is mainly helpful when you have a single header and multiple attachment or multiple records in the association. In that case, whatever record you want to combine, you will segregate them based on the CID underscore reference. Okay, and now what values will be connected here? That would be taken by target. So your target would be LT underscore target, which has these attachment values. So this header and this attachment will be connected now. So all of this thing is done. Now finally we will be using modify to save the data. Write the modify entities of, again your root entity name here, and then entity. You can have this name or your alias name we will be using the alias name here, student, then create from. These are all old syntax which we have seen previously. So create from will have our main entity name which has the values. So this is the internal table which has the root or header entity values. Now the next thing is create by. So now here we will be providing the association details. Which association detail you want to save, where that association details are available, and which association you want to save here. So backslash, and then I want to save the attachments association. So this value will be available from lt attachment because we have provided it here. See, this contains our attachment details. That's why we are passing this lt target here, and then everything is appended to lt attachment table. We are passing here which is type of the association. Here we have maintained it. Okay, so for entity, root entity, we are passing here, and to save the association details we are passing here, which is done by create by and the association name. Okay, now everything is done. Now finally we used to add data mapped failed and the last one is reported. This is done. Now finally check if everything is fine after the execution of this. So for that we will put the if block here, and if this is initial, it means everything is fine. We will be doing commit entities and then finally showing the message to the user. So outright, and in place of data we will with association, and that's it. Now everything is done here. Let's try to activate. Okay, our code is now activated. Now let's go back to our application here, back, and now currently we have one record with first name, last name, and we have one attachment here. Okay, now click on go. So only one record. Let's go back and execute our code here. So run as F9. See, a record created with association. Now go back to preview and click on go. See, we got one record created here, and when we click here, our expectation is we should also see a record in the attachment table. So click here and see, we got our record, although the attachment is not there because we haven't uploaded it. So some default values we are saving along with the main entity or the header entity. Now if you want to make any change, you can make the changes. Click on this, select, see, our file is uploaded, and click on save. So now file is done and the record is also available here. Okay, so this is how we can use create and create by association And that's all for now in this video. And if you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.